This is my birthday dinner, not some breeding announcement party for my son's gold-digging wife," Evelyn Hartwell shrieked, ripping the delicate paper stork from the restaurant's private dining room wall with manicured claws. The owner of Romano's, a distinguished man in an Italian suit, appeared in the doorway just as she grabbed my ultrasound photo from the table, and his face went from professional concern to shocked recognition in 2 seconds flat. "Julianna," he breathed, staring at me like he'd seen a ghost, and I smiled through my tears. "Hi, Dad. Meet the woman who destroyed our family 25 years ago." The champagne flute in Evelyn's hand shattered against the marble floor, but the sound was nothing compared to the collective gasp from the 23 relatives she'd assembled to celebrate her 65th birthday. My husband Marcus stood frozen beside me, his hand still holding the world's best grandma gift bag we'd never get to present, while his father Richard looked between his wife and the restaurant owner like he was watching a tennis match in hell. "Antonio?" Evelyn's voice came out strangled, all her upper-crust Connecticut composure evaporating. How are you?" "The owner of the restaurant you insisted on booking for your birthday," my father said quietly, his Italian accent still coloring his words despite decades in America. "The one you called quaint but adequate in your email correspondence with my manager." I should have told Marcus the truth months ago. Should have mentioned that his mother's favorite Italian restaurant, the one she bragged about discovering, the one where she held all her important celebrations, was owned by my father. The father I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, until 2 weeks ago when I'd called him sobbing after my first ultrasound, breaking our long silence with the words, "Papa, you're going to be a grandfather." "Wait," Marcus's sister Diana said slowly, her law degree kicking in as she connected dots. "Your maiden name was Romano, like the restaurant, like Antonio Romano, award-winning chef and owner of this establishment," I confirmed, standing despite my morning sickness. "Also my father. Also Evelyn's ex-husband from her first marriage, the one she never mentions." "First marriage?" Richard's voice cracked. "Evelyn, what is she talking about?" The room erupted. Diana grabbed her phone, presumably to research. Marcus's brother James knocked over a wine bottle reaching for his wife. Aunt Martha fainted into the antipasti. And through it all, Evelyn stood perfectly still, her face cycling through colors like a demented mood ring. "You knew," my father said, understanding dawning. "When your son introduced his girlfriend 3 years ago, you knew who she was." "The daughter of the help?" Evelyn found her voice, venom dripping. "The girl who grew up in a kitchen because her father couldn't provide proper childcare?" Yes, I knew exactly who she was. "The help?" I laughed, but it came out sharp. "Is that what you're calling him now? The man you married at 21? The man whose recipes built your entire entertaining reputation? The man you left for Richard's money the second Papa's restaurant struggled? You don't understand anything. I understand that you've spent 3 years treating me like trash because you're terrified. I'll tell your precious society friends that before you were Evelyn Hartwell of the Hartford Hartwells, you were Evie Romano, wife of an immigrant cook." Marcus finally unfroze. "Mom, is this true? Were you married to Julianna's father?" "It was annulled," Evelyn said quickly, too quickly. "It didn't count." "Annulled?" My father's laugh was bitter. "Is that what you tell yourself? We were married for 2 years, Evelyn. You signed the divorce papers in this very building, back when it was my uncle's pizzeria, before I turned it into what it is today. Before he became one of the most successful restaurateurs in Connecticut," I added, watching Evelyn flinch. "Funny how you love eating here now that he's rich and famous. How you brag about knowing the owner. You just leave out the part where you used to be married to him." "Stop it," Evelyn hissed. "You're making a scene." "I'm making a scene?" I gestured to the destroyed decorations. "You literally attacked my pregnancy announcement. Because you couldn't stand the attention being off you for 5 seconds. "Pregnancy?" Richard finally caught up. "You're pregnant?" 12 weeks, Marcus confirmed, moving to stand beside me. "We wanted to announce it tonight. We thought—" He looked at his mother with dawning horror. "We thought you'd be happy to be a grandmother." "Happy?" Evelyn's voice went shrill. "Happy that my son is repeating my mistakes, marrying beneath him, producing children who'll grow up in a kitchen like their mother?" "I have an MBA from Wharton," I said flatly. "I'm the CFO of a Fortune 500 company. What exactly about me is beneath anyone?" "Blood will tell," Evelyn spat. "Look at you, causing drama at my celebration." "Your celebration of what, exactly?" my father interrupted, stepping fully into the room. "Of successfully hiding your past? Of pretending you were born into wealth instead of marrying it twice? Don't you dare." "What? Tell the truth? Tell them how we met when you were waitressing at my uncle's restaurant. How you pursued me because you thought marrying a chef was romantic. How you left the second the business had a bad year. I left because you loved that kitchen more than me." The raw honesty in her voice made everyone freeze. Even my father looked taken aback. "I left," Evelyn continued, tears smearing her perfect makeup, "because I was 23, and pregnant and terrified, and you were working 18-hour days trying to save a failing restaurant instead of preparing for our baby." The room went silent. I felt Marcus's hand find mine, squeezing tight. "What baby?" I whispered. Evelyn looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time in 3 years. "The one I lost at 5 months, 2 weeks after I left your father. 2 weeks after I'd already started dating Richard." My father sank into a chair. "Evelyn, why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you what? That I was grieving our child while you were grieving your stupid restaurant? That I needed you and you were never there? That I married Richard because he promised to take care of me, and I was so tired of taking care of myself?" "Mom," Diana said softly, "why didn't you ever tell us any of this?" "Because," Evelyn said, straightening her spine, "I built a life where that pain didn't exist, where I wasn't the girl who lost everything, where I was someone who mattered." "You always mattered," my father said quietly. "That's why I worked so hard, for us, for our future." "We didn't have a future. We had a kitchen that smelled like garlic and dreams that were too big for 2 kids who didn't know anything about love, except that it was supposed to conquer everything." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out love doesn't pay rent or bring back dead babies or make a 23-year-old girl feel less alone." I stood there, trying to reconcile this broken woman with the titanium-spined monster-in-law, who'd made my life hell for 3 years. "So you hate me because— what? I remind you of what you lost?" "I hate you," Evelyn said slowly, "because you're everything I could have been if I'd been braver. You grew up in that kitchen, and instead of running from it, you used it as a foundation. You got your education without abandoning your roots. You married my son for love, not security. You're announcing your pregnancy with joy, not terror. And that makes you angry? That makes me ashamed." The admission seemed to break something in her. "Every time I see you, I see the girl I was, the girl I abandoned, the life I threw away because I was scared." "So you tried to destroy mine?" The anger I'd been carrying for 3 years bubbled up. "All the snide comments about my background? Telling your friends I was Marcus's little charity case? Trying to break us up? I thought if I could save Marcus from making my mistakes." "Your mistake was leaving," my father interrupted. "Not loving, not trying, not building something together even when it was hard." "Easy to say now," Evelyn shot back, "when you're successful. When the restaurant is thriving, when you're not 23 and bleeding alone in a hospital bathroom, knowing your husband is at work because the evening rush is more important than—" "Stop." My father's voice broke. "Just stop. If I had known—" "But you didn't. Because I didn't tell you. Because I was raised to believe that strong women handle things alone. That needing help was weakness. That leaving was better than breaking." She looked at Richard, who hadn't moved since the revelation started. So I left, and I built a new life, a safer life, one where I could control everything. Except you couldn't control me marrying your ex-husband's daughter, Marcus said, understanding finally dawning. That's why you've been so awful to Julianna. It wasn't about her at all. It was about your past catching up with you. The invite list for tonight, Diana said suddenly. You invited the Weatherbys, the Ashfords, the Pemberstons, all the people you've been social climbing with for decades. This whole birthday was a performance, wasn't it? Showing off your perfect life. And then we walked in, ready to announce a pregnancy, I added, to shift focus to the next generation, to celebrate new life in the restaurant where your old life ended. Evelyn sank into a chair, suddenly looking every one of her 65 years. I've spent 40 years running from that girl who lost everything. 40 years building walls so high I forgot what was behind them. And then you showed up at that charity gala 3 years ago, Antonio Romano's daughter, wearing your grandmother's pearls and your father's smile, and every wall I'd built started cracking. So you tried to drive me away. I tried to protect the life I'd built, the identity I'd created, the family that didn't know their mother was once someone else entirely. Mom, James said quietly, speaking for the first time. We would have loved you anyway. You didn't have to hide. Didn't I? Evelyn looked at her children, successful, polished, raised in privilege. Would you have respected me knowing I came from nothing? That I was a waitress who got lucky? That I built your lives on a foundation of lies and a rich man's guilt? Guilt? Richard's voice was hoarse. What guilt? Evelyn closed her eyes. You knew I was pregnant when you started pursuing me. You knew I was married. You didn't care because you wanted what Antonio had. Passion, fire, someone who loved with their whole heart. You thought you could buy that. And I let you, because I needed to be bought. We both got what we deserved. A transaction dressed up as a marriage. Evelyn, Richard said, pain evident in every syllable. I loved you. Love you. It was never a transaction for me. Wasn't it? You got the young, beautiful wife who knew how to cook and entertain because she'd learned in a professional kitchen. I got the security and status I craved. We've been performing our roles so long we forgot they were roles. That's not true. Name one time, Evelyn challenged, in 38 years of marriage, when you asked about my life before you. One time you wondered about my family, my dreams, my losses. You didn't want a whole person, Richard. You wanted what I could be for you. And I was so desperate to forget who I'd been that I let you erase me. The silence was deafening. Around us, the abandoned birthday dinner grew cold. The carefully planned menu my father had probably agonized over, trying to impress the ex-wife who'd never acknowledged their connection. I need some air, Marcus said suddenly, but he didn't let go of my hand. Mom, I can't process this right now. You've been torturing the woman I love for 3 years because of your own ghosts. You've made every family gathering a battlefield because you couldn't face your past. And now we find out our entire family history is built on lies? Not lies, I said quietly, surprising everyone, including myself. Pain. There's a difference. Marcus looked at me incredulously. You're defending her? I'm understanding her. There's a difference. I turned to Evelyn. You were 23, pregnant, married to a man who loved his dream more than your reality. You lost a baby alone. You rebuilt yourself from scratch. Those aren't lies. They're survival. Don't, Evelyn said sharply. Don't you dare pity me. It's not pity. It's recognition. I grew up in that kitchen you ran from. I know how all-consuming it is, how it swallows everything. Time, money, relationships. I watched my father miss birthdays and holidays because the restaurant needed him. I understand why you left. My father made a sound, protest or agreement, I couldn't tell. But here's what I don't understand, I continued. Why you stayed gone. Why, when he became successful, when he could have given you everything you'd wanted. You didn't reach out. Why you kept coming here, eating his food, praising his restaurant to your friends, but never acknowledging him, or me, or the fact that your son fell in love with the daughter of your greatest regret. Because by then I was someone else, Evelyn said simply. I was Richard's Evelyn, mother to Diana and James and Marcus, pillar of society. I couldn't be Evie Romano again. She was dead. I killed her in that hospital bathroom along with... She stopped, unable to finish. Your baby, I said gently. Your and Papa's baby. Don't call him that, Evelyn snapped. He's not your Papa here. He's just... Antonio. The past. A ghost I've been running from for 40 years. A ghost who's standing right here, my father said dryly, and who's apparently about to become a grandfather, despite his daughter not speaking to him for 3 years. Marcus's head whipped toward me. What? You haven't been talking to your father? You said you were having lunch. I lied, I admitted. I haven't spoken to him since our engagement party, since your mother made it clear that my restaurant background was an embarrassment. I chose you over him, just like she chose Richard over him. History really does repeat itself. Jules, Marcus breathed. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was 26 and in love and stupid enough to think that if I just distanced myself from my past, your mother would accept me. That if I became corporate enough, polished enough, Hartford enough, she'd forget where I came from. I laughed bitterly. Turns out you can't outrun your blood. Just ask her. This is what I was trying to protect you from, Evelyn said to Marcus. This messiness, this pain. The past always comes back. Always. Only if you let it fester, Diana said quietly. She'd been typing on her phone throughout the conversation, and now she looked up. Mom, I just pulled the marriage records. You and Antonio Romano were married for 2 years, 3 months, and 16 days. You were 21. He was 24. The divorce was filed citing irreconcilable differences, but the timing... She did quick math. You filed 2 weeks after you would have lost the baby. Dad, you married her 4 months later. It wasn't seemly to wait longer, Richard said numbly. Society has rules. Society has expectations, my father corrected. You both chose to follow them instead of fighting for something real. Fighting? Evelyn stood, 40 years of rage erupting. I was bleeding and broken and 23 years old. What was I supposed to fight with? Love? Hope? Pretty words about dreams and futures? I needed stability. I needed safety. I needed someone who would put me first, not second, to a failing pizzeria. And I needed my wife, my father roared back, 40 years of his own pain breaking free. I needed my partner. I needed the girl who believed in my dreams, who drew pictures of what our restaurant would look like, who named dishes after our future children. I came home that night to an empty apartment and a note. A note, Evelyn, not even the courage to say goodbye. Courage? Evelyn laughed wildly. You want to talk about courage? How about the courage to admit you loved that kitchen more than me? That you were relieved when I left because it meant you could work 20-hour days without guilt? That you... I was destroyed when you left. The words tore from him. I worked those 20-hour days because it was the only way to stop thinking about you, about our baby, about how I'd failed you both. And when I finally succeeded, when I finally had everything we'd dreamed of, you were already someone else's wife, already erased me like I never existed. You think I erased you? Evelyn's voice broke. I see you in every meal I cook, hear you in every compliment about my dinner parties, feel you in every... She stopped, pressing her hand to her stomach in an unconsciously protective gesture that told me she'd never stopped grieving that lost child. Evelyn, Richard said quietly, is that why you never wanted more children? Why you said 3 was enough? She turned to her husband, the man she'd built a life with on the ashes of another. How could I? How could I try again when I'd already failed once, when I'd already proven I couldn't protect, couldn't save. Mom, Diana moved to her mother's side. You didn't fail. Miscarriages happen. It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? I was stressed, wasn't eating properly, working doubles to help with bills while Antonio tried to save the restaurant. I should have been resting. Should have been careful. Should have had a husband who noticed you were struggling, my father said quietly. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I'm 40 years too late, but I'm sorry. I failed you, failed our baby, failed us. The words hung in the air like absolution and condemnation all at once. Well, Aunt Martha said, having recovered from her fainting spell, this is certainly more exciting than last year's birthday dinner. The inappropriate comment broke the tension, and nervous laughter rippled through the room. I think, James said diplomatically, we should probably continue this conversation somewhere more private. No, I said firmly. We're done running from things, done hiding, done pretending. I looked at Evelyn. You've spent 3 years punishing me for existing, making me feel small and worthless and unwelcome in your family? And now I find out it was all because I reminded you of a life you threw away? Julianna. I'm pregnant, I continued, with your grandchild, Marcus's child, the next generation of whatever messy, complicated, painful family this is, and I need to know, are you going to punish this baby too? Are you going to look at them and see your ghost? Or are you finally going to stop running? Evelyn stared at me for a long moment. You really are his daughter. That stubborn Romano chin, that refusal to let things go, that demand for truth no matter how much it hurts. Is that a bad thing? I used to think so. Now, she looked around the room, at her husband, her children, her past and present colliding in a private dining room that probably cost more to rent than her father's pizzeria made in a month 40 years ago. Now, I think maybe I've been wrong about a lot of things. Evelyn, my father said softly, it's not too late. Not for apologies. Not for forgiveness. Not for finally laying our ghosts to rest. Isn't it? She gestured weakly at the destruction around us. Look what I've done. To my family. To yours. To this poor girl who had the misfortune of falling in love with my son. This poor girl, I said firmly, is tougher than you think. I survived 3 years of your worst. I can survive your truth. But can I? The question was so quiet I almost missed it. Can I survive finally admitting that I've wasted 40 years being someone I'm not? That I threw away real love for the illusion of safety? That I've been coming to this restaurant twice a month for 15 years, sitting in the dining room my ex-husband built, eating food that tastes like my youth, pretending I don't know who he is? You've been coming here for 15 years? My father asked, stunned. Evelyn nodded miserably. Started when Diana graduated high school. I told myself I just wanted to see if you'd made it, if the dreams we'd had were worth what they cost. And then I couldn't stop. The food, the atmosphere, the success you'd built. It was everything we'd planned, everything I'd walked away from. Why didn't you ever say anything? What was I supposed to say? Congratulations on your success? Sorry I wasn't strong enough to stick around for the struggle? Your autumn truffle risotto is perfect, just like we always dreamed it would be? I see you hired our daughter as your CFO, the one I've been tormenting because she reminds me of my failures? Yes, my father said simply. Any of that would have been better than silence. I specialize in silence, Evelyn said bitterly. Ask Richard. 38 years of marriage, and I never once told him about the baby, about you, about the girl I was before I became his perfect society wife. So tell us now, Marcus said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. Tell us who you really are, Mom, not the version you've been performing, the real you. Evelyn looked at her son, the child she'd raised in privilege, who'd never known hunger or uncertainty, or the kind of desperate love that makes you do desperate things. You don't want to know her. She's weak and frightened and human, I interrupted. She's human. And maybe if you'd let us see that version, we could have avoided 3 years of war. Or maybe, Evelyn countered, you'd have seen how alike we are and run screaming. I considered that. The girl who'd grown up in a restaurant kitchen, who'd put herself through school on scholarships and determination, who'd fallen in love with a boy from a different world and spent 3 years trying to prove she belonged, who'd just lied about cutting off contact with her father to keep the peace. Maybe we are alike, I admitted, but I'm not running from it anymore. Brave words from someone who hasn't lost anything yet. Haven't I? I lost 3 years with my father because I was trying to make you happy. Lost my connection to my heritage, my history, my heart because you made me feel ashamed of where I came from. Lost pieces of myself trying to fit into your world. The only difference between us is that I'm 29, not 23. I have Marcus's support, not his judgment. And I'm not facing this alone. I reached for my father's hand, then Marcus's, linking them together. We can break the cycle, right here, right now. Your grandchild doesn't have to grow up with these secrets, doesn't have to choose between worlds, doesn't have to be ashamed of any part of their heritage, not the restaurant kitchen or the Hartford mansion or the complicated, messy, painful, beautiful truth of how it all connects. You make it sound so easy, Evelyn whispered. It's not easy, but it's easier than spending another 40 years pretending. Aren't you tired? Aren't you exhausted from performing Evelyn Hartwell instead of just being Evie Romano? Evie Romano is dead. No, my father said gently. She's been sitting in my dining room twice a month for 15 years, ordering the autumn truffle risotto, because it was her favorite when she was 22 and in love and believed anything was possible. Evelyn made a sound, half laugh, half sob. You noticed. I notice everything about you, always have, even when you're pretending not to exist. This is insane, Richard said suddenly. Evelyn, we're leaving. This circus has gone on long enough. No, Evelyn said quietly. I'm done leaving, done running, done pretending. She looked at her husband of 38 years. I'm sorry, Richard. You deserved better than a ghost, than someone who was using you to hide from herself, but I can't do it anymore. Are you leaving me? I'm finding me, Evelyn corrected. For the first time in 40 years, I'm going to figure out who I am when I'm not performing for anyone. When I'm not being your wife or their mother or society's darling. Just me. Mom, Diana said urgently, you don't have to blow up your entire life. We can work through this. Can we? Can we really build anything real on a foundation of lies? Evelyn looked around the room at the family she'd built and the family she'd abandoned. I've been so terrified of losing what I had that I never stopped to ask if it was worth keeping. 38 years, Richard said hollowly. 38 years of marriage and you're ending it in a restaurant? I'm not ending anything, Evelyn said. I'm finally beginning. The question is whether you want to be part of that beginning or not. The room held its breath. Marcus's hand tightened on mine, and I could feel the tremor in it. His whole world was reshaping itself in real time. I need to think, Richard said finally. I can't do this here. Not with him watching. Not with everyone watching. He left, dignity intact, but foundations shattered. James followed after a moment, murmuring something about checking on him. Diana lingered, torn between loyalty and curiosity. Go, Evelyn told her. Make sure they're okay. The men in our family aren't equipped for emotional earthquakes. After Diana left, it was just the 5 of us, Evelyn, Antonio, Marcus, me, and the unborn baby, whose announcement had started this avalanche. So, Marcus said into the silence, we're having a baby. Despite everything, Evelyn smiled. A real smile, not her society version. A baby. Antonio's grandchild. My grandchild. Our grandchild. Complicated genetics, I said weakly. The best kind, my father said. Complexity makes things interesting. Interesting, Evelyn repeated. That's one word for destroying your life in a single evening. Or rebuilding it, I suggested. Sometimes you have to tear down to the foundation before you can build something worth keeping. You sound like your father. He used to say things like that when the restaurant was failing. We'll rebuild, Evie. Make it better. Make it ours. We could have, my father said softly, if you'd stayed. If I'd stayed, I'd have resented you. Resented the baby. Resented the life that felt too small for my dreams. She looked at him with 40 years of regret. Leaving was the only kindness I had left to give. Was it kind, or was it just easier than fighting? Both. Neither. I was 23, Antonio. I didn't know the difference between love and survival, between dreams and delusions, between building a life and building a prison. She turned to me. But you do. You grew up seeing both sides, watching your father build his dream, learning what it costs, and you still chose love, still chose Marcus, still chose to announce your pregnancy in a room full of people who might judge you for it. I chose truth, I corrected, even when it's messy, even when it hurts, even when it would be easier to lie. Then you're braver than I ever was. Or maybe I just had better examples. A father who showed me that dreams could come true with enough work. A husband who loves me for who I am, not who he needs me to be. And maybe, I took a deep breath, a mother-in-law who's finally ready to stop running from herself. Evelyn stared at me. After everything I've done to you? Because of everything you've done. You can't hate someone that much unless you see yourself in them. And if we're as alike as you say, then I know you're capable of more than cruelty. You're capable of growth, of change, of becoming the grandmother this baby deserves. I don't know how to do that, how to be real, how to stop performing. 65 years old, and I do not know who I am when I'm not playing a role. Start small, Marcus suggested. Tell us one true thing, something you've never told anyone. Evelyn thought for a moment. I still cook Antonio's recipes, everyone he taught me. I've served them at 1,000 dinner parties, claimed them as old family recipes. But they're his, every single one. And every time someone compliments my cooking, I think about the kitchen in that tiny apartment. Him teaching me to make his grandmother's sauce, both of us covered in flour and hope. I still have that recipe, my father said quietly. Written in your handwriting. You illustrated the margins with little hearts. You kept it? I kept everything. Every note. Every picture. Every memory. They're in a box in my office labeled before. Because everything in my life divided into before you left and after. Antonio. One true thing, he said. That's what your son asked for. Here's mine. I've been waiting 40 years for you to walk back into my life. Every time the door opened, every time a reservation was made, every time I heard someone order the autumn truffle risotto, I hoped. 40 years of hope. Even when I knew it was stupid. Even when I knew you'd chosen someone else. Even when my daughter told me you were making her life hell. I still hoped. Why? Evelyn whispered. Because you can't kill real love. You can bury it, ignore it, replace it with safer things. But it stays there, waiting, like seeds in winter soil, just waiting for the right moment to grow again. Marcus made a sound. Understanding or recognition, or maybe just the realization that his parents' marriage had never stood a chance against this kind of history. I should go, Evelyn said, but she didn't move. Richard needs me. My family needs me. I can't. Yes, you can, I said firmly. For once in your life, Evelyn, you can choose yourself. Choose truth. Choose the life you actually want instead of the one you think you should have. And what if I don't know what I want? What if I'm too old to figure it out? Then we'll figure it out together, Marcus said, surprising everyone. Mom, I've watched you perform my entire life. The perfect hostess, the perfect wife, the perfect mother, but I've never seen you happy, not really happy, Not until just now when you were yelling at Antonio about the past. That's the most alive I've seen you in 29 years. That's not... It is, he insisted. And maybe that's what this baby needs. Not a perfect grandmother. Not a society.